if the knee of Kemba Walker is okay, which I hope it is. Don't worry, Knicks fans, I'm not rooting against you. Quite the contrary, I want Kemba's knee to kick everyone's ass and bring out the old Kemba. But if it's not, again, knock on wood, but if it's not, then this could go pretty badly.
We talked about the Knicks a lot last episode, and I feel like we need to just recant that entire conversation now, because we find out, I believe it was Wednesday, that Kemba Walker is agreeing to a buyout with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He had 2 years and $74 million left on his contract. I don't think we've heard how much money he's giving back, but according to friend of the podcast, Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, he is going to the New York Knicks. He is signing a deal worth roughly $8 million. We haven't seen terms. We don't know if it's going to be more than 1 year, if there's a player option, whatever. I think at most it's going to be a 1+1 with a second-year player option. I cannot imagine Kemba committed multiple years at that price point. But Kemba going home to the Garden now gets the team. You know, the Knicks basically ran it back otherwise, added Fournier and ran it back. And we were like, well, okay, but like a lot of other teams have gotten better, so they can't. Now you add Kemba Walker to the mix. And I don't want to say that they knew this was going to happen the whole time, but it does feel like more than a coincidence that they saved just enough cap space to squeeze him in. So in the context of the addition of Kemba Walker, a lot of their other additions, or really just, you know, re-signing Burks, re-signing Noel, it makes more sense now. So what do you think of the Knicks? How do you see Kemba fitting there? And, you know, where do you see them fitting in with this new tier of, you know, Bulls, Celtics, Heat, Hawks, Sixers? Like, are they in that mix as well?
So first and foremost, I'm not fully in on the recanting all the way for one reason, and it's a reason that I hope to be wrong on. Let me just get this right off the bat. I hope to be recanting on this. If the knee of Kemba Walker is okay, which I hope it is. Don't worry, Knicks fans, I'm not rooting against you. Quite the contrary, I want Kemba's knee to kick everyone's ass and bring out the old Kemba. But if it's not, again, knock on wood, but if it's not, then this could go pretty badly. And I hope that poor Kemba Walker's knee isn't going to be a subject of Tom Thibodeau playing him 37, 38 minutes per game, because that wouldn't help matters at all. Yeah. I am worried about something though, Bryan. When have we ever seen the Oklahoma City Thunder, at least here over the past year or so, just go straight up to a buyout? Like, this is the team that acquires an ineffective player, or a guy who doesn't really fit the market anymore, sprinkle him with fairy dust and send him on his way and gets a first-round pick in return.
Chris Paul, Al Horford, they did it for both of them. Right, yeah.
Exactly. Now we have Kemba, who basically they didn't even give him regular season minutes. So I'm wondering, Bryan, if OKC took a look at that knee and went, yeah, we can't trade that.
Yeah, maybe they just probed the market and saw, okay, yeah, absolutely no one's interested. We are not getting the value that we don't think even in a year that we can get the value that we got for Chris Paul and Horford. And, you know, part of it might have been like, there are two options here. It could be, one, maybe Kemba is too good and we want to tank like hell next year and he's going to prevent us from doing so. Or the more charitable idea is, you know, we don't want to take minutes away from our young guards. We have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We just gave a max contract to. We just drafted Trey Mann and Josh Giddey. We have Lou Dort still. We have Theo Maledon. We want to really turn it over to the young guys. So we're going to do right by Kemba. You know, we won't know the answer until the regular season starts. Like you, I hope Kemba's knee is fine and that he can have the homecoming that he deserves. But it is a fair concern. I will say, you know, for $8 million, especially if it's a 1-year deal, there's just so little risk to it. Like there's no
risk. There's no risk. I want to take it a step further. Even if it's $10 million, Bryan, there's no risk. They had so much cap space anyway. It's fine. I love this gamble for New York as well. It's almost similar to the DeRozan thing where I said, like, you kind of need to do these things to get back into the swing of being a good team. Kemba Walker, if no like health concerns over him, is an elite freaking point guard. This is a guy who can come in and give you 20 points, like 5+ assists, 3+ 3-pointers made per game. That is all-star level production, and if that's the player they're getting, especially at that price point, that might be the best damn contract given out during the entire offseason.
Yeah, I'm like starting to work on a best value signings of free agency, and Kemba is number one with a bullet right now. The upside so outweighs the downside.
Yeah.
That, like some of these other min signings are great too, and we'll get to them when we talk about the contenders, but I mean, Kemba Walker signed a max contract 2 years ago. And I know health was a big issue for him this past year in particular, and you're totally right about the smile. Like, God, I hope, he's not playing 38 minutes a game in a regular season game in January. But, I mean, that's where having Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickley, having some young guards off the bench is going to actually hopefully help keep Kemba's minutes in check. I hope Leon Rose, the team president, and their medical staff comes up with a good plan for him. Like, do not overtax this guy. But considering, I mean, they were starting Elfrid freaking Payton last year, and every single, going into the playoffs, we're like, when are they going to just bench Elfrid Payton? Why are they trotting out this guy who is terrible for 6 minutes at the start of every game, and Derrick Rose replaces him for the next 42? There's no point. Now it's not like ceremonial starter Elfrid Payton. It's, holy crap, boy, a multi-time All-Star, a 4-time All-Star, Kemba Walker. So, again, like, how do you sort out the hierarchy in the East? I think is something that we're going to be talking about from now until the season starts, because I don't know how to rank Boston versus Chicago versus the Knicks versus the Pacers right now. Like, they're all right in that mix, and injuries are going to play a big role, unfortunately, in determining who ends up where. But like the Knicks, I mean, I don't think they're the 4 seed next year, but they're definitely also going to be in that mix for the top 6.
Oh yeah, I didn't know you were lobbing it to me. I agree, of course. I think this whole ideology of the Eastern Conference is dead and buried now. The East is loaded, just loaded with talent. Are we at that point, Bryan, where I might even say that the East right now is a little bit better than the West? Just in terms of depth? Yeah,
I mean, like the Nuggets with Jamal Murray's injury and the Clippers with Kawhi's injury, that really hurts the top of the West.
I'm taking that into account. I'm saying this year, and I'm taking injuries into account, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, like, each conference has 3 teams that just are not going to be competitive this year. The Thunder, Kings, and Rockets in the West. The Cavs, Pistons, Magic in the East. The Spurs probably aren't going to be competitive either, I guess. Maybe the Kings will talk themselves into being competitive. They won't be.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, again, like, one of Knicks, Pacers, Bulls, Hawks, Heat, Celtics is going to miss the playoffs entirely. Like, I would pick whichever one of those teams does probably over the 9th or 10th seed in the West, like the Pelicans mostly, or the Timberwolves or the Blazers maybe. So, yeah, it's at least the playing field is evening out for sure. And the other big news on the Knicks front is that Julius Randle has agreed to a 4-year, $117 million extension. It is the max that he could have signed because extension rules are stupid and you can only get 120% of your previous salary. So he was limited. He could have become a free agent next summer and made probably upward of $200 million if he was able to get a max deal either from the Knicks or another team. But I want, you also look at the cautionary tale of Dennis Schroeder, who is now probably going to get a third of what he turned down during the season. And then John Collins, who we'll get to shortly. Like, those negotiations seemed like they weren't off to a great start. So he locks in the bag. He is now signed through the next 5 years. What do you think of that extension, Morten?
I think it's fine. I don't think that Randle is, one of those $200 million max guys.
Nope.
So I actually like this for him. What is like the full 5-year prognosis? That's a 4-year 140, right?
Yeah, I think 5 years 140, I believe.
That's under 30 million per year. Like, he's paid as what he should be, the second guy on a team, which I think is fair to say of Julius Randle. I know not a lot of Knicks fans would be like, well, he was our leader this year. We made the playoffs. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. But with championship aspirations, I don't think Julius Randle could ever be your best player. I mean, I don't know if that's a hot take, but I don't think he's on that level. So I think he's being compensated fairly for what I consider personally to see him as, which is the second option.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you could, similar to how the Bulls now slot in, if Kemba's healthy, he's going to be the 1A to Julius Randle's number one option. RJ Barrett is still young. He might become more of a scoring presence in the coming years as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, Randle struggled so much in the playoffs because defenses could key in on him. RJ Barrett shot 38.8%. Reggie Bullock didn't shoot well. No one on the Knicks shot well. The offense was a disaster. If Kemba can help draw some attention away from Randle and Evan Fournier as well, the additions of those two guys, the Knicks had one of the better defenses in the league last year, but their offense was just a tire fire. They're going to take a step back defensively, most likely, putting in Kemba and Fournier into that starting lineup. But I think the gains they make offensively will more than offset the losses defensively.
Did the Boston Celtics just pay a first-round draft pick to just basically put Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker on the Knicks?
I saw that tweet going around yesterday, and it might have been my favorite tweet I've ever seen on that godforsaken website.
Yeah, that was. I mean, look, I even gave you a hall pass to smoke the Celtics on this one because, whoa boy. But I agree with you. If Kemba is the Kemba of old, this would be probably the most perfect evolution of Randle as a player because he can now feed off a proper point guard. And when I say that, I mean someone who is also very inclined to make passes and spread the court, just spread the defense out, which nowadays is very much required from a point guard. Derrick Rose is not that type of player. He's a shoot first guy who takes a bunch of mid-range shares. So Julius Randle would greatly benefit from a fully healthy Kemba Walker. And also he'll benefit from just having Evan Fournier running around taking threes and spotting up and stretching everything out. I'm intrigued, and I think the Knicks are on the right way, but I'm not fully recanting because I do still think that was a lot of money on Rose, on Nerlens Noel, on Alec Burks to bring those guys back, and I just wonder, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just wonder, could they not have done something more inspiring or better with those available money?
Yeah, well, the other thing that we found out is that all of those deals had a third-year team option, I believe. Well, Fournier is 4 years, so it's a fourth-year team option. So, they're not 2023. They basically have a clean slate again. So, I think of the Knicks and the Bulls somewhat in the same way this offseason, where do these moves drastically increase their championship upside? Probably not. I don't think either team is on the tier of Brooklyn or Milwaukee, and I don't think there were moves out there for either team. They were so far from that level before, and given the talent on this free agent class, unless they landed Kawhi and magically healed his ACL so he played all of next season, I don't know what moves were out there for these teams to upgrade to that extent. But I think you're right. Both teams are on the right path, and there is something to be said about just giving fans some entertaining product to watch, right? And not every team goes into the season, they all say, our goal is to compete for a championship. It's not true. A lot of teams are just happy making the playoffs. that's okay. Like if you're a Knicks fan and you've been forced to watch a crap product for most of the past 2 decades, it's fine to be excited about a team that might not make it out of the first round. And same goes to the Bulls fan. Like you haven't watched the team that made the playoffs in the last 4 years. It's okay to be excited about this team, even though they aren't a championship contender, even though they might not be with this current core. It's fine.
It is fine. I'm not saying otherwise. What I am saying is I think the expectation was that because the Knicks took the leap that they did last year and they were armed with that much cap space, you kind of wanted them to take that next step, like going from one tier to another. And then I think I think it's unfair to say they stayed at the same tier. I think the inclusion of Evan Fournier in particular, because we know that he's healthy now. And then, of course, the upside of Kemba. Like that, honestly, the health of Kemba is what separates them into a new tier. If he's healthy, fully healthy, and Evan Fournier is also fully back after his COVID scare and all that, then they go up a full tier. Then I'm willing to basically say, okay, the Knicks of last year, they have grown a full tier now. They have made that progression. But if Kemba's knee buckles down, or if Evan Fournier doesn't respond to the same way, whatever, then I think they kind of mostly stuck with what they had, which I would understand why some Knicks fans would find that uninspiring. That said, you hit on something right, because if Knicks fans are all in on this roster, that has value. It really does. You're absolutely right. Those Knicks fans were for so long they put bags over their heads, for crying out loud. Yeah. They were so out of it, like they were just done with that franchise, right?
Yeah.
Now they're not. They seem very, very engaged. They seem to love this crew. And if they have so much love for the guys that they re-signed, who the hell am I to say that those weren't the right pieces? That's absolutely correct. I want the Knicks to actually be good. I love when the Knicks are good. And so I saw this as an opportunity. They just made the playoffs. They had all this momentum, $50 million in cap space. So I was like, oh, maybe they actually go out there and do something super crazy nice so they become a championship contender. Wouldn't that be a great story? And I just don't think they're there. Unless, of course, Kemba defies conventional wisdom about his knee and goes completely apeshit over the next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard for me to... I hear you, but looking at the free agent market, who was there out there for them to, okay, we signed this guy and we're an immediate championship? Like, I just don't think that, even if you get Kawhi, who is not healthy next year and he's not leaving the Clippers, I mean, he hasn't officially said it, but,
do you need cap space, though, to find guys?
You're saying you could have traded for, who is there to trade for?
Well, see, we always hear these rumors about guys wanting to go to the Knicks, right?
Yeah.
Always. What if this year there was some truth to it because they actually became good? And this wasn't I don't know if they explored that avenue. I'm not going to say they didn't. If they did their due diligence, you're absolutely right. If they did their due diligence and there simply wasn't anyone on the market, fair game. But we constantly hear about these guys wanting to go to the Knicks. I assumed at some point that would be true, especially after a year where they made it back to the playoffs, they overachieved, it finally seems like they got their house in order. Like when we heard the Dame stuff, like Dame actually wants to go to the Knicks, or he's open to the Knicks, I was sitting there going, oh, well, in previous years, I would have disregarded that entirely. Maybe I wouldn't this year because of what happened. Like, they were good. They were a lot better. Maybe now's the time. And maybe it was just me who became a victim of my own expectations for the Knicks because I actually wanted them to take that huge step and actually become a part of the NBA's elite. I don't know.
I mean, I will say all of the contracts that they signed, especially if Dame asked out in the next couple months, and Neil Olshey knows he's going to get fired, but he's going to do everything in his power not to.
Right.
Kemba Walker on an $8 million contract if he is healthy.
Yes.
A lot. Now they have some salary matching pieces. So if that star becomes available and if that star says they want to go to the Knicks, package together some combination of Kemba, RJ Barrett, Fournier, Mitchell Robinson, Derrick Rose, Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks. They have a bunch of stuff they can throw in now salary-wise and in terms of rotation pieces, they still have at least one draft pick from the Mavericks coming along. I think they have all of their own as well. So
yeah, they should have their own. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think this takes them out of the star market necessarily. Like I think this is realistically the best they could have done this summer. So I am sorry. I recant all of my skepticism because I do think the Kemba signing just changes so much for them, and knowing about the team options on all of these deals, like knowing
pending his health.
Right, of course.
Okay. Well, all right. Just to close that up, it's a fair point. I just wonder if Portland would be interested in so many mid-tier contracts, such as Nerlens Noel, Derrick Rose. Like, I could definitely see a world wherein they go, we don't care about that. The only thing we care about, literally, are draft picks. Just give us that and expiring contracts. But again, look, who knows? If they suddenly announce a trade for Dame a month from now, then I'm definitely recanting.
Okay, good.